Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Chidi podcast. This is obviously you know who I am. This week, I'm so excited to have our guest who we have a long-standing relationship. The way I like to say it is she keeps me out of jail. She's at least so far she has. She's our legal counsel for all the stuff that we do here at Impact Africa Network and all the other brands that we're building. So Kavere Mbayor. She has one of those, how do I describe it? One of those exotic last names like we all do in Africa. But the way you say yours is, I've never heard that one before. But yeah, super excited to have you here. The idea today, we're staying on our professionals track. And the idea was to kind of have somebody with a legal head to kind of come and share with us her experiences and teach us some of the things that we should know as entrepreneurs, and that's the idea. So with that said, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what you do and how you ended up doing what you do. That would be exciting.
I like to call myself a legal services solutions provider. Not just a lawyer. Lawyer is so dull.
Legal services solutions provider. I love it. Okay.
Or rather, legal solutions provider. Yeah, because our clients, when they walk through our door, they're not just looking for a legal solution, but they're looking for a solution that partly is legal and some partly strategic and partly social. So that is why I call myself a legal solutions provider.
Strategic. Okay, so that's interesting. Is this something that you evolved to in terms of understanding how to frame what you do? Is that an evolution? How did you arrive at this three-pronged kind of definition?
I'll give you a small story.
Stories are great. We love stories.
So, rewind to 2001 when I joined campus. So I was called to study law, but law was not my first choice. I always thought I'd be a doctor. You know.
So you had the professions kind of.
Yes, in boxes.
Right.
You're either going to become a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer.
Yeah, I need to know what I'm going to be doing.
Yes.
From the jump.
So we read Ben Carson's books, and we were all going to become neurosurgeons.
Okay, you and who? Your peers.
The brainy ones.
The brainy ones.
So.
Which high school, by the way? Just
Loreto Kiambu.
Okay,
Yes.
nice school, good school.
Yeah, good school.
Has it still retained its reputation?
Still retained its reputation, and the networks that I formed there, we still keep touch. My clients are from there.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yes,
good
because
network.
the girls have grown into women and women in good positions in society. So
that's great.
Yeah,
that's great.
Good background.
Yeah, I'd love to meet your network at some point.
Yeah. Anytime.
I think women are doing amazing work in Kenya, in Nairobi, in the business landscape. I mean, it's just very admirable. I'm a big fan of the women professionals, business owners in this ecosystem. Just excellent.
Yes, so I was good in math in school, and still performed pretty well in sciences. So that's why I thought probably I should do something in engineering or medicine. But that time, that was 1998, we had this system called joint admissions book. We used to call it JAB. So depending on how you perform in your examinations, then they would simply slot you.
Yeah.
So you had to pick 4 courses. Then whichever one that you would qualify for is the one that you would actually take. So it's very strange that you'd have medicine as your first choice, and then you have law as your second choice.
Interesting.
Because they're like
completely, yeah.
I know.
Yeah, so weird how that was structured actually.
Yeah.
Okay. It was not about the individual. It was about these roles that need to be filled somehow. It was not very weird. Okay.
So the results came out, and I was called to study law.
Okay. Interesting.
So
not your first choice,
yes.
But here you are.
Yes. So I went to law school, and law school was amazing. But
which law school? Nairobi?
University of Nairobi.
Okay.
Yes. But somewhere in between, I felt a little bored. Like I could be doing much more than just studying law. So I enrolled for CPA.
Okay.
Yes, CPA is Certified Public Accountant.
Yeah. So high achieving, like, man, this law is not enough. I need I need more punishment. I need more homework. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're clearly very studious and driven individual. Okay.
Yeah. So I studied. So alongside my law degree, I also
With your CPA.
CPA. So when I was graduating as a lawyer and also as a certified public accountant.
Interesting. And what kind of why did you pick CPA as kind of like, okay, was it a strategic move or was it just like a hedge?
So
like if this law thing doesn't work.
The question was, how do I enrich the law degree?
Okay.
How do I enrich it?
Have you seen an example of that, or did you arrive at that?
I hadn't seen an example of that. But I was exposed to CPA. CPA then back then was a hit. It
was a big deal.
It was a hit, and everybody said it was very hard, and so I thought, why not? Why not?
Right.
I could have done anything else, but I thought CPA would enrich
right.
My law degree because you practice within a context.
True.
We don't just apply the legal principles in abstract.
Right.
So there has to be a context, and for me, the business context has always been exciting.
Right.
So I thought these two would
really
go very well together.
Synergistically, yeah. I mean, they're the grounds for making an amazing CFO, Chief Financial Officer, right? And I can see how, because in my experience of working with different CFOs at different companies, we're always negotiating contracts, right, with our partners or whatever. And he was the main, like, we always had a legal counsel who was kind of like escalation or when you're going into real negotiations about this stuff, but he had to know his stuff around kind of like what was possible within the financial context around and the legal overlap. So it's quite interesting. Yeah.
So I finish campus with my law degree, with my CPA, and then what next? We lawyers have to go through a program called pupillage. So I went to a law firm and concluded a year of pupillage, and then the next thing is to get a job. So
not at the same law firm. They usually don't extend that.
If you're interested,
okay.
You can extend. I mean, if your master likes you and
he's called a master?
Yes, your people master.
Oh, wow. Sounds...
Because he is a professional, he is already practicing law. He has years of experience, and you're just getting started.
Right. So he's a master.
So he's your master. He's teaching you how to become like him or her.
How about a mentor? Master just sounds so slaverish. Because probably that's what it is anyway. You all need to change that term. Go ahead.
Yeah, so master in the sense of mastering.
Got it.
Not just master-slave.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I finished my pupillage, I think that was 2005, and then the job market was now open.
Right.
So I would apply for jobs and I would get interviews, and the panel would ask me, so are you a lawyer or are you an accountant?
You're confusing people already. Okay.
So I told them, I'm a lawyer who is an accountant.
They felt threatened.
I don't have to be in either box.
Wow. You actually said that to these people?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. How did they respond?
Well, I never got called back. Because they were looking for somebody who would fit in
a box. What they used to see.
Without feeling like you've hung a part of you somewhere.
Interesting. Oh, okay. Interesting. Very interesting.
So it was from a good place. It wasn't from a bad place.
How can that be? That's just from an uncreative place. I guess. Okay. Continue.
Yeah. So
basically, the CPA was not working out right now. This thing was.
Yeah, because the employers either wanted accountants or lawyers. Not both.
So funny.
Not both.
Yeah, we come from a world where things were fit into this box, please.
Yes.
Right? If you got a bit of a round edge, that's not an advantage.
Yeah.
That is so crazy. Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Let me ask you this. If you now, since you have your own firm and all this other stuff, if somebody came with the same, I guess, credentials, how would you respond?
I'll be very excited.
Okay.
Because I'll be able to see outright the potential.
Totally.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So now you're going through this rejection process.
You make it sound so.
Right?
Anyway, yeah, but guess what? An opportunity actually came up.
Surfaced.
Yes, an opportunity surfaced.
As they tend to do.
And I joined Kenya Insurance Corporation as a management trainee.
Okay.
This was back in 2006.
Nice, stable, long-standing franchise.
It's
Business. When I say franchise, I mean, I use that in the American context, meaning just a brand. Okay.
Yes, and for the first 2 years of my employment, I was actually in the finance department.
Wow, look at you.
Yes.
How did you, that's exciting. Okay.
However, I was in the finance department, but my role was so tailored in a way that I was actually doing legal work in a finance department.
I love it. Okay, so it's working out now, right?
Yes. So I was in charge of compliance because every organization must comply with its legal framework. So anything to do with compliance for that organization, I was in charge of it.
You were in charge of that as a management trainee?
As a no, of course, I concluded the management training program was very interesting because we had to touch every department. Okay. So you went to legal for a bit, you went to corporate affairs, you went to finance, you went to the insurance department. So there was some sort of rotation for a year, and then thereafter you're now posted to a department. Okay. Yes. So it was I was very excited to see how my competence.
Your hunch was paying off. Yeah.
Like I didn't have to be either. I just had a role.
That's great.
Which was making use of my twin competence. Yes.
Okay. Then what?
And then an opportunity came up.
So you're there for 2 years, or?
No, I was in that organization for 6 years.
For 6 years, okay.
Yes. 2 years was in the finance department, and 4 years in the legal department. Okay. So I crossed over now to proper legal, and I realized that I was actually the experience in the finance department completely enriched the kind of legal
professional
service I would give the organization. Nice. Because you're giving them a solution, well knowing
contextual
what the context is. So there's a bit of the legal, let's go by what the book says, but also
in our situation,
this is what we want to achieve.
Yeah, so we can translate.
So how do we do it?
Nice.
While remaining compliant.
Got it.
Yeah.
So that's where the strategy comes in, right? Yes. Legal strategy, and you said the third thing was social. The 3-pronged stool of how you define your value proposition.
Yes.
Okay, so now I see how. Okay, all right.
Now you're starting to.
I see that there's a method to the madness here. It's not just. Because a lot of times people can just say things that sound cool, but I'm always, is that just style? Where's the substance? Give me some substance here. This is great. So, all right, so 6 years at this firm, and then what happened?
And then I got restless. It's because you've done all the lists you can do. You've done all the agreements you can do. Right. You've done all the employment matters you can do.
And you're starting to see them come back, repeat themselves.
So it's a cycle now. Right.
You're like, okay, I'll see this come.
Conveyor belt.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So. It's exciting in the beginning, then it gets.
And so then it was time to move.
Okay.
So I moved. I joined another organization. Still as a manager in the legal department, but doing something new. So I moved from an organization which had about 120 employees to an organization that had 4,500 employees.
Wow. Okay.
So obviously this was different in terms of volumes.
Yeah. Everything.
Everything.
Relationships. I mean, 120 people, you know everybody by face at least.
3 names, even their children.
Right.
And where they live.
You see, that's like moving from a startup to, not a startup classically, but in terms of the numbers of people, right, to a really established enterprise, right?
Yes.
So, wow, okay, so you made the move because obviously things were drying up in terms of interest and excitement.
New experiences, and I needed to grow.
So, are you comfortable naming the company?
Yeah, Postal Corporation of Kenya.
Postal?
Yes.
Kenya Posta?
Yes.
Jesus Christ, what was that like?
It was a shock.
I bet.
Yes.
Like everyone is old.
For a good shock. It was
To
a
me,
good shock.
to me, I always when I think about that organization, which is not true, but I just think like everybody's ancient in that organization. How accurate is that assessment?
Not accurate.
But
Not accurate.
somewhat.
There are aspects, obviously, because postal services are as old
as the country, right? Pretty much.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So what was the shock?
The shock, first of all, there was a culture shock in terms of the numbers.
Yeah. You drowned.
I was in that organization for 3 years, and sometimes I believe I used to see a new face
every day. Yeah.
New face every day. But it was a very good opportunity for me to see how you can scale an operation. Because my legal department in my previous workplace was not
5 people.
Actually 3.
There you go.
And we moved to about a team of 15 at the postal corporation.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And there was a lot of work. There was a lot of work. And you may look at postal corporation from outside and you think it's an ancient organization.
Right.
But believe me, when you step inside,
it's a whole other
in terms of processes, in terms of policies, they have it to the T.
They have it because it's a virtue of the industry they're in, or is it because they're the type of organization that is it just because that's how you operate a postal service? Because
a postal service has a lot to do with scheduling,
right, or logistics.
Logistics. Right. I think that order is necessary for their survival.
Yeah. And so one would think, right, just again from the outside looking in, that they should have crossed all the T's, dotted all the I's, and now it's running on train tracks. I mean, what are the moving parts now? Because you've been doing this for so long as a postal service. What's changing to require now more legal blah, blah, blah?
But the landscape is changing. The economic landscape. I
love this. Talk about this.
When I did my MBA in
so you did an MBA?
Yes, I did an MBA.
you are leaving nothing to chance. You are like
because I knew eventually I want to exit the formal employment and get into.
So you knew that. When did you know
I knew that. Even before I joined employment, I knew that I wanted to run a business.
Okay, so you have this entrepreneurial spirit in you.
Yes.
Okay.
I did. All of us did. I did some small businesses. Story for another day.
Right.
Yes, before joining campus, after campus.
Right.
So it's a passion. I like to create things and see how they move along.
Okay.
So I knew I would eventually come back to it. Not necessarily a legal practice.
Okay.
But a business nonetheless.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So where are we? So now the pressures at the postal changing landscape. What's that? If you could just kind of sum that up, that would be interesting.
The postal corporation's business is traditional.
Right.
Letters.
Yeah.
Apart from lawyers.
When's the last time you got a letter? You're a lawyer, so you get a,
so
you get a bunch of
them. But we don't send them through the post.
You send them through messengers?
Yeah.
Okay.
We use courier services.
Yes. Okay.
Use courier service. So that is the traditional business. So even when I was going in, I was very curious to see exactly, what goes on.
Right.
Because letters and success cards, and this is the businesses of
Kitambo. It doesn't exist anymore.
Exactly.
Right.
But I was very surprised to go in there and find that their backbone is actually financial services.
Hey, okay.
Yes. You see, this is an organization that has networks across the whole country that touch
every single corner.
Every single day.
Right.
Those networks touch because articles are being transported from somewhere to somewhere across the country. To the remotest village, you will find a post office.
That's amazing, eh? Their reach is insane.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And what do financial services providers want to do? They want access.
They want access.
Yes.
How do you define that?
They want to access. They want their services to be taken up by.
Yeah, penetration.
Exactly. So, Postal Corporation was in a very strategic place
to be a partner.
To be a partner to the banks.
Got it.
You know.
Okay, so they are infrastructure players.
Yes, to even businesses for the last mile delivery.
Right.
Because you don't want to reinvent the wheel. There's already an organization, it's established, it has a route.
Let's do it.
Things will move whether or not yours is part of the,
So they had a B2B business bigger than B2C for sure, because B2C was disappearing.
Yes. So they were actually evolving.
They were evolving. Okay. How were they evolving on the B2B side? Were they adopting new services, or not adopting, but offering? Were they innovating out of, customers were asking for stuff, or prospective customers, or did they have an innovative mindset internally, or what was the dynamic?
There was no innovative mindset internally, but they were forced to innovate.
Got it.
Because
the market
it was
pull.
either they innovate or they die.
Got it. Okay, it was survival instinct kicking in.
Yes.
All right.
Because now you're moving from analog to digital.
Right.
How do we survive?
And
so, you have to look at postal services across the globe, and I
all
realized,
of them.
So when I was researching for my thesis, I realized that all postal corporations around the world were actually going through
the same
issues.
Interesting.
The same issues.
Yes.
But courier is here to stay.
Right. Because
stuff
still needs to get moved.
Stuff still needs to get moved. Just not letters, but other stuff.
So and I guess we got to circle back into the conversation we want to have around how people should think about legal services and so on and so forth. But this is so interesting, right? Like, net of it is, if I was to ask you, do you see this postal, I would call it almost like a business infrastructure, do you see room for more stuff to happen on top of that? Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
They should be the e-commerce platform for everybody.
Yes. It should be the trusted e-commerce platform because it's been there, it's done successfully over the years. It's a giant.
I love it. Okay, cool. All right, so how many years there? 3 years?
Yes.
Okay. And then the bug?
So eventually I had a very short stint at Uchumi.
Okay.
Yes.
Are they still around? There's one on Gong Road, I know. It's like Nakuma,
The organization is not a store.
Right, I know that, but I'm just saying, like, you have to have the store for the organization to exist.
I know.
Appendage must function.
I know.
So you were out there for how long?
About 9 months.
And what was that like?
It was a roller coaster ride.
Okay. Going up or down? Like,
up, down, sideways, water splashing.
All of those fun ones, right? You don't know if you're upside down
walking
or whatever.
on fire, everything.
Wow.
Everything.
Okay. And when which years were these? Or which year
this was just 2016.
Oh wow, very recently.
Yeah, very recently. Yes, 2016. You recall Dr. Julius Kipngetich had been hired to be the CEO, and therefore he formed a dream team. So I was very privileged to be
on that dream team.
Yeah.
Okay. To restructure this thing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
How did that play out?
Very, 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 very well.
Be honest.
Very well. I'm being honest. I'm being honest.
I'm
being honest.
Define well.
Very well in the sense that it exposed me to 90% of what can go wrong in an organization.
I love the way you put that. I think you have politics in your future. You set us up so good. Like, wow, okay. What can go wrong? Okay.
What can go wrong and what can go right?
Okay. So 90% of what can go wrong or go right.
Yes.
Wait a minute.
All of it was packed in the 9 months that I was.
Right.
there.
So which 9? Okay. So let me ask you this, just for clarity's sake. This 90%, is it the wrong or is it the wrong and the right combined?
Mostly the wrong.
So tell us. I know it's. What are some of the things you learned from that experience? What are some of the takeaways you had?
My biggest takeaways from my tenure at Uchumi is corporate governance. Corporate governance. We were not responsible for whatever failures the organization had gone through, but we were responsible for trying to right them. And therefore you learn a very big lesson that if you do not get your corporate governance right
from the jump, from the beginning, or
it will take a very long time to fix the failures. And sometimes you may not succeed.
You
may not succeed.
So, and for the layperson, define corporate governance, what it is and how it's structured. What are we talking about?
So, what is corporate governance? It is how an organization holds itself accountable to its shareholders. How do you control the organization while remaining accountable to the owners of the business? So it has everything to do with how do we do what we do? How do we do what we do? Okay, so you're running a supermarket chain of supermarket. Okay, so you need goods in the shops. You need to restock when they're out. You have credit lines with suppliers. You know, you have credit lines with the banks.
Right.
You know, so all these things are happening. It's like a wheel, and it has to be very well oiled. And if anybody drops the ball, then everything will crumble.
But that sounds much more like operations than governance.
The difference between operations and governance is that governance has the accountability element. Okay. So what structures are these that we have put in place to ensure that whatever business it is that we are running, can we call it wealth, for lack of a better word? How are we safeguarding the wealth?
Okay, so make it kind of like more tangible, and I know you've talked about the operational side. How does that? Because you have managers who are responsible to their managers, who goes up to the CEO, right? So there's accountability within the organizational framework.
But it doesn't end there. It has a beginning and an end. So it starts with the shareholders. You have a business. Okay, you own a business. You are the shareholders. You have put in your money, but you're not running the business. So you get a management, okay, to run the business. So you cannot every day check how is the finance manager doing, how is the HR doing, how is audit doing. So you have a board, which is a smaller oversight. So there's a reporting mechanism between the board and the shareholders, and there's a reporting mechanism between management and the board.
Right.
And management also, they have their own small, because
accountability frameworks, whatever.
So you have a core team, right, and the core team also has people. So there's a hierarchy.
Yeah.
And information has to flow all the way to the board, so that when you're sitting in that boardroom, your finger is on the pulse of the business.
So let me ask you a question.
Yes.
So what did Uchumi not do? What was the problem?
Because there's still ongoing investigations, and there's still sanctions on members of the Uchumi board prior to Dr. Kim Getich's tenure. I'm not at liberty to share.
But I guess that high level, there was an existing board before you guys.
Yes.
And it sounds like that board didn't do its job. Is that what
Let me not say the board didn't do its job. Let me say the corporate governance structure failed. Because had it worked, then everybody would have been accountable. And everybody would have done what they ought to do based on what the policy says you do. The people in procurement would have done what they ought to do. The people in finance would have done what they ought to have done.
Got it. So people are running their own businesses.
And the board would have... I didn't say that.
I'm asking. Wow, okay, so that's actually is a great segue to now delve into, just what we want to talk about today, right? Which is, you're a lawyer, you support businesses of all sizes, I think. I don't know. So maybe
all sizes.
Okay. So why don't we start with this? Tell us a little bit about your firm, what you guys do. We started by talking about your kind of value proposition.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about your firm, right? Who you guys are and all that, and then we can dive into what you guys do and how to think about legal services and stuff.
So we set up Lumallas, Achieng and Kavere in 2016.
I like the way it says lack advocates.
Yes, because Lumallas, Achieng and Kavere is a mouthful.
Right.
So the L stands for Lumallas, the A stands for Achieng.
I think we got that.
The K stands for myself.
I think we got that first. You should be a teacher, by the way. Yes. Go ahead.
Yes.
So 2000 when?
16.
Okay, right after
Yes,
the
right
training.
after, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Did you guys know each other before?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Lumallas was a personal friend.
Mm-hmm.
My roommate in campus was Lumallas' classmate in high school. That's how I met Lumallas.
All right. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then Achieng was my classmate in campus.
Okay.
Yes.
So you had this,
And Achieng and Lumallas were colleagues at Mohammed Mondai and Company Advocates.
Ah, good friend, Mr.
So it's a whole, it's a web.
It's a web, yeah.
Yes.
Man, Nairobi is so small.
Very small.
Right? And I love it that way in some senses. Mm-hmm. So okay, you guys, what was the light bulb moment? Like you were hanging onto a thread about it, you're like, man, this is crazy.
No. We actually started conversations around setting up Black Advocates way back in 2013.
Okay.
2013.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's the classic startup story.
Right.
Because you have to plan.
Right.
So from 2013, we knew that we want to set up a farm.
Mm.
And so we had milestones that we had to achieve.
Well,
We had
milestones.
to, yes.
Wow, you guys are seriously organized. I love it.
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So we had to set aside funds, scout for an office, get staff, so that by the time we are exiting
You're ready.
formal employment, we are not starting from scratch.
Yeah.
We already have, an
Right.
entity that is,
Right.
existing and operating at the minimal level, so that we just come in and we,
Right.
bring our presence on board.
Right.
And
Love
get
it.
going.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did that work out? How did that play out? Obviously plans are one thing, execution becomes another thing altogether. What was the variance between your expectations and reality?
Well, I think it's a continuous journey.
Okay.
Entrepreneurship is a continuous. You can't say
Of course.
we are there.
Right, of course not. But I'm just saying.
But we had to be very clear on what the mission is, and I
Okay.
guess that is what informed the kind of partners
Right.
that were coming together.
Okay.
We didn't believe in duplicating competences. So you will find that Lumallas heads the dispute resolution and litigation department. So dispute resolution is very wide. People imagine that dispute resolution is just about suing somebody and going to court, and having a judge, make a determination. No. Sometimes you can mediate a dispute.
Right.
Where the parties actually
Sit across the table, negotiate,
and they,
settle out of court and all that.
And they come up with an agreement on how they're going
How often does that happen if you're just to kind of in your experience?
Very often.
Versus going to court? Because
Very
going to court
often.
sucks. Yeah.
Very often.
Yeah.
Like I told you, we provide solutions. We don't just do what the client says we should do. When the client walks in and they have an issue, there's a dispute. Let's say somebody has breached a contract.
Right. It's
Or
always
somebody has not paid your money. We don't just jump and say yes. Let's
go
sue
sue them.
Let's no. We first understand what is the issue. What is the genesis of the issue, and what does our client really want? You understand? Because sometimes you have a surface issue,
right,
but deep inside you have some interests that you want to take care of. So we unmask, so that we are really giving you the solution that you need.
Got it. So it's not just a presenting symptom.
Yes, we have to get to
Do
the
some
root of it.
serious-
What is the problem?
To diagnosis, to kind of, okay.
So
interesting.
not 100% of the disputes that walk through our door see the day of light in court. Not all of them.
What percentage?
I would say.
Yeah, what's the ratio there?
Maybe 80% make it to court.
That's a high percentage.
20% we are able to mediate.
Which is a better outcome for your
For the firm.
business? Yeah.
We make money either way.
Right.
Yeah.
But in terms of, it seems like, just a layperson here, going to court is a lot of work. Of course, you guys are paid by the hour or whatever. But it just seems like, man, it's a hassle, right? Or,
You see, if you cannot force an agreement on parties. You cannot force parties to reconcile and meet their obligations.
So you guys don't think about it from an optimization. There's no optimization play between those two scenarios.
Unfortunately, it's not within our hands 100%.
But I'm asking,
yes.
is there like a better outcome potentially? Like, and I'm thinking about it from a very business standpoint, right? Efficiency is better for a business, but in the legal practice, maybe lack of efficiency is great because it's you're paid by the hour. I don't know, right? I'm trying to understand if there are between those two things, just very simplistically, is there one that's a preferred outcome? Of course, it's contextual, but at the boilerplate level, this is much more efficient, or not. That doesn't even come.
What
up.
I would say is alternative dispute resolution methods. Like I have mentioned, only mediation. There's mediation, there's conciliation, there's arbitration. What they achieve, first of all, is they salvage the relationship between the parties.
Very important.
Because there's you have a decent conversation across the table.
Okay.
And it's very private. Nobody knows what we are discussing in here, in the, in the boardroom. Nobody knows. But court is open.
Oh. So court, basically the gloves are off.
Yes.
We're going for it.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And then in court, unless the parties consent, they reach a consent which is then recorded and adopted as an order of the court. There's a win-lose. You understand?
Right.
One party wins, goes home happy, the other party loses. But when it comes to mediation, for example, it's a win-win. Because you
agree.
You agree. You concede of your own free will, not because the court has told you to do so. So it's nice.
Okay.
It's
but only 20% in your experience may go down that path, which seems, just given the benefits you've talked about, seems like a very paltry, not optimal.
And I'll attribute that to the fact that mediation is, can I say that we are late adopters of these alternative dispute resolution methods?
We as in whom?
We as Kenyans.
Okay.
Yes. So, for instance, 10 years ago, if you talked about mediation, the buzz was not there as much as it is right now. Right now, we have many trained professional mediators. So
it's an emerging.
It's an emerging
market,
area of practice. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. I like things. This is insightful because now maybe people who didn't know about this, have a context in terms of how to think about that. And why do you think we were late to the party?
I don't know. I don't know why we were late to the party. I don't know.
We tend to be late for a few things. Maybe that's what we do.
Maybe.
Okay. And so, so how has it changed the legal landscape? This new evolution.
It means that when you're going to your lawyers, you're not just going to get the traditional, representation. Okay. But you're actually going to your lawyer to get a wholesome solution to whatever your issue is. And it cuts across from family issues, whether it's parties who are divorcing and they need to, talk about their properties or the children, whether it's business owners who are going their separate ways, whether it's succession matters and someone has died and there's a clamor for his, assets.
But all these things have been happening even before, right? So what was the judicial solution? What was happening?
The court was making determinations.
Oh, so it was all going to the court. So I guess we've kind of created.
And maybe I should mention that now we actually have a court-annexed mediation practice ongoing, in the sense that if a dispute is before a judge or a magistrate, and the magistrate feels that it is better resolved by mediation as opposed to, tried in court, then they recommend. And parties are actually asked to, first of all, go and attempt mediation. Okay. And if it fails, then you will come back and the judge will make a determination.
I like that. That's really a humanistic, almost, socially conscious.
Yes.
But it emerged out of just backlog. Well, because people don't do things. People don't do things actually because it's going to help humanity.
Really?
We don't do that. It's institutions. Institutions here are like, yo, man, you are going to line up, stay lining up. Although I got to say, I've been pleasantly surprised by some of these, maybe, I don't want to use KRA because they're after your money, so they'll make sure they talk to you quickly. There have been responsive experiences from a customer service standpoint that have surprised me. I'll just suffice it to say that. Because I always thought like, oh my God, people just treat, wananchi like, you know what I'm saying? Like anyway, like a third cousin or something like that. But anyway, so this is interesting. So maybe it emerged out of the backlog in courts, but I think it's a very conscious move, all in all, right?
Yes. So I was still on the L.
L. My goodness. Now we're at Achieng.
Yes.
Let's talk about it.
So Achieng has been a conveyancing practitioner.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
For 13 years.
Conveyancing practitioner. What does that mean? It sounds like a factory job. Conveyance. Airport trolley. I don't know.
Yeah, it's true to convey.
Right.
So conveyancing is sale of property.
Okay.
Sale and purchase of property.
So she's in real estate.
Yes.
Essentially.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's a whole service offering that we give you when you walk through our door. So she's done real estate, she's done developments, she's done project financing for those developments. She has represented banks in syndicated loan agreements, in securities, preparing the charges. So that's a whole department that she runs.
So now I'm even getting pissed. I brought you the podcast because I'm like, we just want you guys for ourselves. Because as we build companies, we will be going down all these paths.
Yes.
Fintech, real estate. I mean, you know what I'm saying? But now all these listeners will be coming to you and keep you busy. So
Please come.
We'll be on the outside looking in. That's amazing. So you have you have this. That's very impressive. All the way from just real estate to finance and that whole kind of.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And
you find the 2019 Kenyan, wants to own property, even if it's just a plot. They want to own property,
right.
But they want to ensure that they are getting good title. So that's where we come.
That's a big one.
Yes.
Jesus. Yes. I know a bunch of people. I mean, that's the stories. People almost, every other person has been burned by a title situation.
Yes.
How bad is that scenario right now in terms of the record keeping and duplication? How messed up is our
I think
land?
with the coming on of e-citizen, and we are trying to digitize the records, and we are trying to just create efficiencies around land transactions in terms of how fast can you search. How fast can you transfer a property? How fast can you pay for the taxes and everything? I think they are creating efficiencies in the market, and I think it's a good thing.
So talk about this search. Can you now search? What can you search for right now in terms of land, whatever?
Unfortunately, it's still at the stage of implementation.
Okay.
So you will have some modules that have already achieved 100% implementation, and others haven't.
Right. Okay.
So you may be able to search for a title, say an RLA in Nairobi. So let me not go into the technicalities, because the land regime in Kenya was just recently consolidated in, I think, 2012.
Okay.
Before that, we had all sorts of titles. RLA, RTA, GLA, all these are acts of parliament under which land was registered. So now we have consolidated to the Land Act, and it's getting better. It's getting better.
Okay.
I think probably a time will come when you'll probably be able to do it yourself.
Do what? A search for a title? Do what?
You search and you actually transfer.
Right.
And pay.
Right.
On a portal.
Yeah, and I think the blockchain will probably have some significant element of making that trustworthy, right? Because digital, you can always still, in a sense, corrupt and access that. But anyway, so that's cool. So and then K.
So
you.
K, myself.
Okay. What do you do?
So I'm the commercial department head at the firm. So commercial is the business arm. Any sort of business support that an entity requires.
Individual or whatever.
Individual or entity.
From registering a company.
From registration to compliance to governance. To the sort of agreements that you want to enter into with your business partners, or to in the intellectual property, company secretarial, the whole...
So everything to do with business, essentially, right?
Yes, we are your business partner.
Got it. Okay.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about that. So because that now becomes quite pertinent in terms of our audience. What are some of the things now you've already talked about governance being a problem or was a problem in your experience. So what are some of the mistakes, assumptions that people make when they are starting a company, or even just in general in the business world?
So maybe I will not call them problems. What I should say is there are certain things that founders of businesses have to be very clear about when you're starting your business. And I'll keep it very simple. Entity. What is the vehicle that you're going to market with? So you have a product, or you have a service, or you have whatever it is that you want to do. What is the vehicle that you're going to use to go to the market? How do you decide, let's form a partnership? Or let's register an NGO? Or let's register a limited liability company?
Because they're all obviously different, right?
Yes.
And so
that is the conversation that every business owner needs to have with their lawyer, so that you don't get it wrong from the get-go.
So how often do you think people get it wrong?
Very many times. We've had times when customers come to us and they want to convert. I formed a sole proprietorship. I want to change it to a limited liability company. We are in a partnership. How do we do this? Then you have to cease the business, and then you have to convert and start again. You understand?
How much of a hassle is that typically? I mean, it depends on the context maybe, but I mean, changing your structure. But,
I'll tell you this. When you form a partnership, that partnership gets its own identity. So you have a PIN for that organization, and there's a history. So there are transactions that the business will undertake, and there's a record for that, and there's a PIN. So when you reach the middle and you realize it's not working for you and you want to convert, what I'm trying to say is that it's messy. It's messy. So just get it right from the beginning.
Sometimes it's difficult to get it right because, well, maybe I should put this as a question. In what, I mean, a high percentage of the time, should you be able to think through what you're trying to do and arrive at the right answer? Or are there situations where, things can change in flight, so to speak, right? But I guess what the net of it is, maybe 90% of the time you can predict with good level of certainty what you should set up, right? Yes. And then in that case, most people end up not doing that type of thinking through. Or what's the percentage? Like, what do you think in terms of 10 entrepreneurs, right? How many of them actually have that conversation with somebody who can advise them?
I'll tell you what used to happen. Somebody will walk in and they'll say, we want to register a company. Okay. So then you'll just ask them, okay, so this is a checklist. Give me a name, I'll conduct a search. Who are the shareholders?
You're just a clerk, basically.
Yeah, send me the pins, or send me the photos, send me, you get. But then they'll come back and they will say, we want to remove this person. Or I have left this organization, I had made a contribution, they're refusing to refund it. How do I go about it? So then you start understanding that the failure is actually the kind of entity that they registered. So that's where you start knowing what problems are these.
Right.
Then that informs we as lawyers during the next client brief taking, the kind of questions that we need to ask the client, so that we know exactly what they have to tell us their why, so that we can tell them the how or the what.
Got it.
You understand?
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Awesome. So always seek advice when you're about to set up your entity, right? From people who know what they're talking about. So the question then becomes, how do you pick representation? How do you pick a legal counsel? How do you pick a law firm?
I think the best, I guess that is personal.
You can't say lack advocate. No, but seriously, this is objectively speaking, right? Like if, how would you evaluate this law firm, works for me? I mean, some of them obviously are priced out of people's ranges and so on and so forth. But, how do I know, like, who to go for, right? Who to work with?
I think referrals work best.
So people with a track record, right?
No, what I mean is, if you're a business owner, and you want to start a business and you want to set up an entity, I'm sure you work within, you're in a network, whom have the people in your network used and what has been their experience, there are some firms that stand out, obviously, that people know. I think it's a very difficult question. How do you choose a law firm?
Okay, let me put it this way. Can you pick a wrong law firm? Like in terms not just how can you pick a wrong law firm to represent you?
You can go to, say, a firm that specializes in running down matters. Insurance
Explain.
Claims.
Okay.
Like you've been knocked by a car and you need to...
Ambulance chasers, basically.
That's derogatory.
You're saying the same thing.
No.
So your politics in your future, I swear to God.
No, what I'm trying to say is firms have different specialization.
Okay. So you gotta look at the specialization. So you have to find your
fit.
Right.
You have to find your fit.
I
don't see why you should go to a firm that specializes in family law, and you want them to handhold you for your startup.
But let me ask you a question then.
Yes.
Do you see a problem, or is there a problem where firms want to be everything to everybody? Is that a thing?
Yeah. Of course it is. Because at the end of the day,
you're trying to get paid. So that's why a consumer is like, yo, how do I know? How do I know your competence? I guess that's why you say it's referrals, right? It's probably best referral based.
Yeah.
Outside referral based, what else can one do? How can I evaluate a law firm?
I mean, visit the website if they have one. See what they're saying about themselves. See what people are saying about the firm.
Right. Right.
Go to the Law Society of Kenya. Find out, do they have disciplinary issues or not?
Okay. Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Disciplinary issues. How? Okay. Jesus Christ. That sounds like a lot of work. So we've kind of covered. You've talked a little bit of some story about governance. Give us a story of maybe a startup where things that you think would be a lessons learned kind of situation here, where maybe people didn't set up the right structure, or maybe people. Just to give us a sense of how important it is to engage a law firm early and stuff like that.
Yes, I have encountered a startup that was in the financial services sector, and what they wanted to do was they wanted to set up a trading platform for Forex. Okay. At the same time, they wanted to undertake a fund management business. Fund management, where you take money from the public,
disperse it into,
and trade with it,
right.
Invest, right. And then give a return,
right.
To
like a hedge fund or like money manager essentially. Right?
Yes,
in a sense.
Yes. At the same time, they wanted to do real estate.
Jesus Christ! But okay, in one business.
Yes, in one business. They had probably maybe 10 very, very good and solid business ideas.
How many were they? 10 people?
Maybe a group of about 17 or 18.
Jesus,
yes.
This sounds like a problem.
No, it's not a problem. It can be done.
Okay, so what happened?
But anyway,
I can't wait for this.
So what they did is this: they had a very good idea, and they were ready to go to market.
17 people.
And they went to market. You understand? They went to market, and they had a fund. You understand? They already had a portfolio of people's investments, that they were running. And so by the time they were contacting a lawyer.
They had not contacted a lawyer up to this point?
No, they had not.
Why? Was one of them what? How?
It happens. You know, entrepreneurs are a different breed. When they have an idea, they just say
So what happened? Okay, so wow.
So by the time they were coming, they were already in a very dicey position. Because you see, there are some sectors which are regulated.
Right.
So you need to understand what is the legal framework that governs your area of operation, so that you can seek the relevant licenses and the relevant approvals from the regulator. So,
how old were these people?
No.
This just sounds like so okay.
Yes.
So what happened?
So it was very tricky because then we now had to handhold and make the relevant applications, and obviously they were in trouble with the regulator because they had already.
So the platform was banned.
You ought not to start without a license. So obviously, if you're going to report yourself to the regulator will ask you to stop operations until you regulate your position. Right. Meanwhile, you have the members of the public
waiting for their money,
saying, "Oh, now we have seen." We have seen a statement that has been issued by the regulator, and so we want our money. We don't want to wait until you have a license.
They're banging at your door.
And it can be a mess. So, and that is why I said, see your lawyer first.
This is a great example.
Yes.
And so, wow. And so, just to give you some context, right? Oh, wow. Okay, so approaching, it's never that simple, right? Like, there's always this negotiation you have with yourself. When should I see a lawyer? Should I see, like, I'm just registering? There's always this kind of negotiation somebody has. I guess best practice for you, suggestion-wise, is, you know, from the, from the get-go. From the get-go.
Like I was saying, that first you have to know what entity suits the kind of operation that you want to set up. Okay? Because if you're, is it a social enterprise? So then we can give you the options of, are you going to set up a trust? Are you going to set up a non-governmental organization? And we will take you through what are the pros, what are the cons, what is the regulatory framework, what are the reporting requirements, but what are the do's, what are the don'ts.
So here's the other thing why it's intimidating also to approach law firms, because you're always thinking, man, they're just sizing how much I'm going to pay. Like, they're not willing to be consultative with me in the beginning, right? And so I'm just like, I just want to kick the can down the road, because I'm just thinking, I just want somebody to actually talk to me first, understand my situation, and then let's figure, you know what I'm saying? And that was my experience with you. And that, to me, you've been a godsend in that sense, because we can talk strategy. And you were like, yeah, look, let's kind of spend some time figuring stuff out before we even talked about fees and anything like that. And I had been talking to a bunch of different situations. And maybe, to be fair, I didn't have a lot of clarity in terms of, you know, initially we're trying to set up something else. But the point I'm getting at is having that initial conversation where somebody can feel comfortable that you're hearing me and you're not seeing dollar signs or shilling signs, whatever, when you see me walk through the door, makes people, it's very comforting and makes people open up and makes everything easier. So let me ask you this. What is the current state of how law firms position themselves? Kind of just the legal market. Is it dollar signs when people walk through the door? Is that changing? Has it been like that? You know, what's the evolution in the legal space right now?
I can't speak for everyone, because I believe everybody has their mission, vision, and I mean, I can't even count the number of firms, you know, that we have.
There's a ton. The law business is massive here.
Yes. And so everybody has to do what they need to do.
But I guess in general, do you see an evolution? Let me ask you, what kind of evolution do you see in the legal practices in general?
I'll speak about our firm. I'll speak about Lack Advocates. Maybe it's representative.
No, listen.
Maybe it's
don't do that, because the people want to the extent you can, because I know these are your peers. You don't want to throw on them.
Exactly.
Okay, let's talk about it at a very objective, high level. I mean, you're seeing pressure from innovation. Templates are kind of starting to take some of it. What's happening?
We have to ride the wave.
What's a wave, though?
Digitization.
Okay.
We have to just ride it.
And what effect is it having on the legal practices? Are people getting caught off guard? What's happening? Give us a sense.
I mean, the early adopters will obviously do better than the laggards, you know.
And what's your sense of where that is right now? Do you have a sense at all?
Yes. There's an emergence of some platforms for lawyers, you know, that are tailor-made for the legal practice. And I think we are at that stage where we are now just turning the page. We have not turned it completely because it's complex. The legal profession is so wide.
Right.
It's so wide.
So for many gray areas.
It is impossible to have all these offerings in, you know, on a platform where we can avail to ourselves.
Not everything is cookie cutter or.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But there is some.
But there are some areas where we are able to create, you know, those efficiencies.
Templatized approaches.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, wow. So there's an evolution for sure underway.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And what effect is it having on how law firms now position themselves or how they engage customers? You know, because it's not business as usual anymore, right?
I'll tell you, the customer does not know the law. You understand? The customer wants a service, and the customer wants the service not in 10 days or in 100 days. They want it now. So the task is upon us as farm owners. How do we make sure that the efficiency is created within our operations in a way that we are able to charm, you know, the turnaround time to almost near, you know, instant. This is an instant generation.
So there's a generational shift in expectation of turnaround time.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's impacting what people expect.
Yes.
Come on, give me answers.
Yes. And sometimes you meet an investor. You're a business owner, and the investor is only around for 3 days. You don't need me to tell you that yes, we will review the agreements in 10 days or in 7 days. So it means that we ourselves internally, we have to have those tools
to respond, to be responsive.
Yes.
Wow, this is interesting. So maybe 10 years ago, the responsiveness was slower, or there was no. I'm trying to get a sense of how it has, like how was it different before? Right? Were people just like, What was the attitude of the law firm when it came to turnaround time, something like that, for example?
What I can say is I can only speak about this generally. For instance, now there was a time where we used to have law books. You know, when a decision is rendered in a matter in our Kenyan courts, they document it, and it's consolidated into law reports, and there are volumes. So you can find all the 1998 matters, 1978 matters.
Wow.
You get. So we moved from an era where we used to have hard copy volumes of that, and now at the click of a button, I can search. You know, on Kenya Law, kenyalaw.org, I can search and see a decision that was rendered 2018 January. You understand? So I think it's not farm-centered.
Oh, it's the ecosystem-centered.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay, cool. I guess we're almost done here with our awesome conversation. I think you've given some very interesting, at least one key insight. You know, talk to a lawyer before you do anything, right?
Yes.
Finding the right lawyer is also very, very important, right? And I don't feel like there's enough, at least you've given some ways that people can go about triaging that situation, which is super helpful, I think, for
if
the
you're
audience.
asking me to summarize, be clear about the entity.
Be clear about the entity, or what you're trying to set up.
Yes.
Okay.
Because
but clarity comes after the conversation. Don't be clear about what you're trying to accomplish or your why, because you talked about the why before.
See, I'm speaking from a perspective where you want to start the business.
Right.
Your audience is startups.
Right.
So I'm giving you my thoughts in that context.
Okay.
So how do you get clarity on the entity that you want to establish? Speak to your lawyer. Okay. Secondly,
The right lawyer.
yes.
Black advocate. I'll plug it in for you.
Secondly, what is the relationship between you and your co-founders?
Very
If
important.
any.
Wow.
Leave the social relationship, but the legal relationship. So if we are setting up a company, for example, and we are shareholders, are we equal shareholders? What is the criteria to determine who gets more shares than the other?
Wow, yeah.
Okay?
You got to have that conversation.
You have to have it. And you have to have it before the money comes.
For sure. Before you do, even work starts.
Yes.
And so what about, this other very important thing, right? That's the word I'm looking for. When, I'll remember, but just keep talking.
Remember.
Yeah.
Yes. So what sort of constitutive documents do we have to have in place which say what should be done in the event of this? Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to provide for profit sharing, loaning the business, you loaning the business your money. How do you, under what are the terms of that?
Mm-hmm.
I want to leave. We're just not getting along. I want to leave. How do I do that? How should I get compensated at the point of exit? What if I die? What happens? So for companies, we prepare for them what we call shareholder agreements, which try to anticipate all these scenarios so that it makes it easy. If something comes up, we simply go to the good book and see what our shareholder agreement says that we need to do, and we do it.
And the other thing, I'm looking for the word here, but it's slipping my mind right now. When people set up a company, and we gotta kind of shut down now, but there's so much good meaty stuff we can talk about. People kind of vesting. That's the word I'm looking for. We set up a company and everybody's vested right away as soon as the thing is registered. That's not a good practice, because vesting, meaning in terms of my ownership of the company, becomes 50% right away. 50% is a bad number, but becomes fully vested. Like I own now right off the bat from when we registered. While in startups, it's really best practice to have a vesting period.
What I have realized is we have, the practice is quite different. Our clients who are from, say, the US, and I've handled vesting agreements, about a few vesting agreements, and you're right. In Kenya, your shares are vested on the day you set up. Exactly. But that's not, our law actually provides for a different scenario. But sometimes I suspect when your lawyer is speaking to you and asking you, you probably do not understand. And that is why you'll find most lawyers will say, how many shares? 20 shares. Paid up on each share? 20. So the shares are fully paid up. Understand? And this is nominal capital. What is even nominal capital? Right. You understand? Right. Yeah. So these are technical terms that I feel startups do not take the time to understand. But let me ask you what it means. Let me ask you a question. So yes. Do we have enough legal professionals who understand these dynamics? Because it's not traditional to our market, right? It is not traditional to it is there in the law. But it's not practiced that much. The practice, yes, it's not practiced that much. The only instances where I have seen a vesting structure is employee share options. ESOPs, okay. Yes. Right. What about founders? Very few. Very few that but it should be a best practice, right? It should be a good practice, yes. If you stay the long haul, it should count for something. Right. If you stay only 3 months, then you can't be vested. Yes. Yeah, come on. Right. Yeah. That's a Silicon Valley thing. Okay. So the entity, the relationship between the founders in terms of when do we do, what do we do, when I want to leave, when I want to loan money to the organization, I want to provide services to the organization. So how will we go about that? Do I get paid? Maybe I'm going to be in charge of the day-to-day operations and you'll be sitting pretty elsewhere. Right. That happens a lot. Yes. How do I get compensated? So sometimes people don't speak about those things. Yeah, they just you're there, you're sweating, and then when the profits come, hey, problems. We are 50-50 partners, so we take 50-50. Right. But I've been honestly, sweating. I've given more. Yes. Blood, sweat, and tears. I've taken more risk. Yeah. Yes. Listen, I mean, we're kind of over our time right now. Final parting shots, if you just
things you want to kind of mention, whatever's in your heart, mind?
Yes, I was closing. From entity to the relationship to funding. How are you funding? Because the kind of funding that you're going to obtain for your business will determine whatever obligations you're going to be under. So business owners must be very careful to choose the kind of capital for the organization. So is it a venture? Do you understand what a venture capitalist wants? Once they are giving you their money?
Right.
Is it a grant? Because even grants sometimes have obligations, reporting obligations. Is it a loan from the bank? Do you understand that you're charging property, that in the event that you're not able to pay, you lose your property? So those are the conversations for startups with your lawyer.
Right.
Yes. And then finally, governance. How are you going to structure your organization? Are you going to have a board and the management and now the employees? So where we come in is not that we are interested in, but we want to make sure that this structure that you have put in place is going to be respected. People are going to comply with it. So how do we do that? Then we will draft for you the policy documents. So you'll have your board will have its charter. If the board has committees, the committees will have their charters. They simply say, who can make a decision? How do we make this decision? What are the channels to make this decision? On the board itself as it is, do you want to have owners on that board? Or do you want to have any independent directors on that board? Do you want to have some owners also working?
Right.
You get, so pick a good structure, executive, non-executive, independent, and then do you have an independent oversight? Usually an independent oversight is through an audit function, which reports directly to the board. But then again, startups do not want to have these conversations because they feel too small. Maybe you're 3 and you're thinking, so
I don't need to.
who serves the board? Who's the audit? Who's management?
I think audit. Audit is. To be fair, I think audit for startups might be a little bit, depending on where they are, but it's heavy, man. Like because you're just experimenting on some stuff. But I think at some point you need to be knowing that I need to get my house in order, right?
Yes.
So there's a waterfall drop date or whatever it is. Listen, we're over our hour. I think you've given a lot of awesome insights, and the audience will kind of really benefit from this. But thank you so much for coming. I'll have you say the last word, even if it's thank you. That's good enough for having me.
Like advocates.
Like advocates. That's right. We close with that. Thanks for coming. That's awesome.
Thank you for having me.